And again, I'm going to, I guess, start some introductions, and then Natalie, I'll have you say a little something, and then we'll carry on with the informational webinar. So first of all, welcome everyone. We're so glad to have so many Smithsonian affiliates interested in the NASA's Universe of Learning program. So introductions. I'm Mary DeSalt. I'm at the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory, one of the Smithsonian units that is not in Washington, D.C. We're up here in Cambridge, Massachusetts at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. And we are a partner on the NASA's Universe of Learning team. Erica Wright is also your one of your go-to contacts for information, and she is here at the Astrophysical Observatory as well. Also on screen is Tim Rue, who is at Space Telescope Science Institute, the lead institution for the NASA's Universe team. And Tim is a senior informal education specialist there. And also on screen is Brandon Lawton. And he is an outreach scientist at Space Telescope and on the Universe of Learning team. And at least in the middle of my video screen is our key contact at Smithsonian Affiliations, Natalie Wimberly. And also involved in the Universe of Learning team at Affiliations is Christina DiMeglio Lopez. And Natalie, I didn't know if you just wanted to welcome folks or say anything or start.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me fine, Mary? Okay. Yes, I'm Natalie, and I will be helping to coordinate this project with Mary and her team. So I just wanted to say welcome, and I look forward to working with you all.
Great. Thanks, Natalie. I see there's some potential technical difficulties, and Erica is handling them in the chat box, so I'm going to continue on unless she hooks me on the shoulder and says I need to stop. Okay. All right. Well, let me give an overview to the webinar, and then I'm going to pass the baton. So what we want to do basically in the next 10 or 15 minutes is give you an introduction to what NASA's Universe of Learning is, and the educational resources that are part of this science education project from NASA, and then kind of tell you what the essential elements of this partnership with affiliations are, and how you can join the community of practice that is thinking about ways to engage audiences all over the country, as affiliates are all over the country, in this science that is associated with the NASA Universe of Learning team. And then finally, part of becoming part of this community of practices, you have an opportunity to apply for and receive mini funds. So we'll talk about that. So without further ado, I guess I'm going to pass the baton to Brandon to introduce us to NASA's Universe of Learning.
All right, thank you, Mary. So on this slide here, you have a bunch of pictures you can look at for NASA's Universe of Learning. But basically, NASA's Universe of Learning is a cooperative agreement between the 5 organizations that are working together to bring NASA's astrophysics science content to you all and to your audiences. And with your help, at least that is the goal. One of the strengths of NASA's Universe of Learning between the partner institutions that you saw on the title slide, one of our strengths is that we have a direct connection to NASA science. That means that we work at institutions that are the science centers and work on the missions of NASA astrophysics. We also have direct connections to the scientists that work on those missions. And we have direct connections to the data that come from those missions through the NASA archives. So because of that, we are able to provide to you NASA content, NASA science directly. And when we say NASA astrophysics, I want to be very clear here what that means. NASA astrophysics is the study of space outside of our solar system. Okay, so that will be the purview of everything that we talk about through these webinars will be things beyond our solar system. So then one of the goals of our program is, through our products and programs, is to address the NASA astrophysics big questions, which you see on the screen here. How does the universe work? How did we get here? And are we alone? And those are very fundamental big questions that humanity has been trying to answer for certainly centuries. And with the slew of space telescopes and instruments that NASA has at hand, we are actually able to make big inroads in addressing all of those questions. I just put down there some thumbnails of various missions that are addressing these questions, and these are just a handful of them. These are not all of the NASA astrophysics missions doing this work. So that's just the big picture, and now I will turn it back over for the next slide.
All right. So we are very glad to have everybody here. As Mary mentioned, Brandon and I are here at the Space Telescope Science Institute, where the science operations for the Hubble Space Telescope are controlled. Our other institutions are scattered around the country, working with a lot of these other missions. And in addition to the work we do, with the science of NASA, we also are finding ways to communicate that out to the public. And there are a lot of different ways, some of which you may be familiar with. I know many of you may have worked with Mary in the past with Youth Capture the Colorful Cosmos and the Micro Observatory. That falls under the purview of NASA's Universe of Learning as well. But there's much, much more that we're going to be going over the course of the webinars and making sure you have access to, you know how to use, you feel like you've got the capacity to use this, because this program really is for everyone, not just science museums. We've had art museums, libraries, all sorts of organizations producing some really awesome stuff. And we're looking forward to what you're going to do. But on here, you'll notice a collection of pictures. These are a few different resources that we produced a little over a year ago with the discovery of TRAPPIST-1. That was that solar system, star system with a number of Earth-sized planets orbiting around it, many of them in the habitable zone. On the top left there, you can see a shot from Eyes on Exoplanets, which is interactive, that's showing up in a bunch of museums around the country. We've got a travel poster there in the middle. We've got a View Space show, which is this video product interpreting a lot of science to make it accessible to just about anybody, on the top right. There are some in-person activities. You can see one down at the bottom left for the scale model that people could actually create and wander around themselves, and that came with a scale model of our own solar system for comparison as well. On the bottom right, you can see a VR experience that's accessible through both your big name VR headsets like HTC or Oculus, but also this can be used with a Google Cardboard. So it's a real easy thing for a lot of people to use. But there's all sorts of things we're creating: images, visualizations, classroom activities, videos, exhibits, all sorts of things. And you'll be seeing how these work. So on the next slide, I want to talk a little bit, there we go, about how the partnership is going to work. So we are going to be providing to you some professional development on how to access and use these resources, where these resources are, and the little bit of the science that you need in order to be able to understand what's going on and share that with your audience. We are going to be providing some mini funds that you can kickstart your project on a competitive basis to many of you. And we will have a community of practice through the Moodle so that you guys can discuss your ideas both with each other and with us. And we will have access, we'll have some astronomers, we'll have educators like myself and Mary who'll be in there providing feedback as well. And from you, We're really looking forward to having you all participate, share some ideas, help each other out, because museums across the country make such amazing things, particularly when they're throwing ideas off each other. We're hoping to get applications from all of you for projects that you want to create that we can help make happen, both with a little bit of money, but also with all of these resources and with access to the scientists and educators that I mentioned. And with those resources, we're hoping you'll be able to develop a program model, sharing something about astrophysics or connecting it to your audience, whatever that audience might be. And then we want to share that information out with the wider informal learning community. We're looking forward to having a few people present at a few conferences coming up. We've gone through this before. We're looking forward to hopefully putting together some journal articles. And we've got a number of other ideas in the works. So we want to help share both your ideas, your institutions, and all of this wonderful stuff that NASA is providing. On the next slide, we'll see a brief overview of the schedule of what we're going to be doing. So we're starting next Wednesday, September 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And we're going to be going over an introduction of the general topics, some of the big resources that you're going to be seeing over and over again that are really important to everything that we do. You'll be seeing a basic intro to the big questions of NASA astrophysics. Wow, where did we come from? How does the universe work? I'm blanking on my last one. Are we alone? Are we alone? And then we'll be going through every other week on Wednesday at those same times, different pieces. You'll see resources related to the content, so putting the universe in context, the electromagnetic spectrum, looking out is looking back in time. You can see the list there. And then in December, mini fund applications will open, and you will have an opportunity to apply, and hopefully you'll be generating ideas along the way and participating in the discussion board. So let me turn it back over to Mary.
All right. Thanks, Tim. So each couple of weeks, there's a live opportunity for us to share some information with you, both about the science and discoveries. There's really amazing discoveries being made, about galaxies, about black holes, about planets orbiting other stars that are really of interest to many audiences. And so in order to kind of follow up and also have a place to have all the recordings of these webinars in case you can't come to one but want to see it later, we're creating an online community of practice. And so actually one of the action items at the end of this webinar will be for you to go to a website to sign up with your email address and organization. So Erica will create an account for you on our NASA Universe of Learning Community of Practice. And it's a place where if you have questions or as we go through the webinars and as you start to think about something you might like to do at your institution, you can ask questions of us, of other community members as well. Again, in December, kind of at the end of this series of webinars to look at resources and science topics, we'll have an application where you can apply for $2,500, which is meant to be kind of seed money to implement a program which you would then document and describe back to the Universe of Learning team and for other informal education institutions around the country. The idea is we know each of you at your institutions has expertise. You have different assets and resources local to you where you can combine some of these NASA resources into some really creative program idea or exhibit idea or planetarium show idea in ways that we wouldn't think of. And so the idea is that a little bit of money helps you really think about how you a program you'd like to implement, and we also are really relying on your creativity. So that $2,500 ends up being paid out from the affiliations office. So Natalie helps coordinate the applications and the that end of keeping track of your participation in the implementation. So you get that money in kind of the bulk up front after filling out the application, and then a little bit at the end of having implemented. So just to give a preview of what we're expecting in order to be eligible for the mini funds is that you actually propose some sort of program that uses universe of learning resources. So that whatever you propose connects with a local audience. So you actually implement something with a local audience, and you do it in a way where you can either outline it so that other organizations could do something similar. And we'll have examples of that for you as we go through on the community of practice, and we're going to show you an example shortly. And that you have this opportunity because you're a Smithsonian affiliate, and participating in the PD sessions will help you actually implement. So the strongest applications, if you're looking to make sure if all of you apply, we have funds for I think at this point 9 organizations. So if you want to be in the top tier of the applications, NASA is particularly interested in museums that can engage audiences traditionally underrepresented in science and underserved by science learning opportunities. And also, again, we're looking for ways that you bring your unique strengths as an institution to your program model. Other factors might include geographic diversity or something like that. Okay, so if you get funded, again, I think I just said that, we develop a program model, use some of the universe of learning resources, document and share what you've done, and then we have a little final report, which is that self-reflection, a little form to fill out about your experience overall in implementing a universe of learning program. So we wanted to show you an example of what implementing a program model looks like in action. And last year, we had our pilot, our initial run with Smithsonian Affiliations, and the Springfield Museum of Art in Ohio applied to do a program model called Artful Exoplanets. So this was an art museum which wanted to engage, as you see, youth audiences, right? This is a summer camp, in both imagining other worlds around other stars, learning what from NASA data and NASA resources about these other worlds, and then using their arts education background, they had the kids create artistic expressions of other worlds. And the kids learned some arts techniques, so they were learning art and science. On the upper left, you have the students used Eyes on Exoplanets visualization. We'll be talking about that in a future webinar. You can see these young people learning different arts techniques to different watercolor techniques to create images of other worlds. And in fact, one of the sessions will include a science visualization artist, one of our webinar sessions, because NASA has to figure out how to communicate about these other worlds too. And so artists participate in science communication as well as scientists. The girl on the right is learning how to code using a resource called Recoloring the Universe, because doing the image processing that comes up with the beautiful images that NASA telescopes send you requires software and knowing how to code. And there's a program where kids learn how to do that. And then the bottom two pictures you can see, the bottom left, the kids use the micro observatory telescopes to take their own images of objects in space and combine that with their own artistic expressions of other worlds in space and what they might look like. So this was a program model we really liked. And again, you can see it integrates the strengths of the affiliate museum with the resources that NASA has. So that's kind of your brief overview of what the opportunity is. We really hope that all of you join us for the series of webinars. And again, I think the email that already went out had the schedule of webinars. If not, we'll make sure it gets out to you. But your first action item after this webinar is to go to this URL, which I think we've Natalie will make sure you all get this URL so that we can sign you up for the community of practice and keep you informed of when the webinars as they come along. So with that, I think we're opening it up to questions. You can either ask those questions in the chat box if you don't have a microphone, or if you want to unmute yourself, if you open up that participant panel, you can unmute yourself and ask by audio. Giving appropriate wait time here. No questions. We've answered everyone's questions. Wow. I hope that means, oh, wait, here we go. Great question. Okay. Brandon, you might want to take this one. Could you describe how you match participants with researchers? Do participants travel to the locations, or is the interaction remotely? I guess we want to clarify what that means there.
Right. So how you match participants with researchers, we will work with you to figure out, based off what your program model needs, to find you a researcher so we can connect with scientists from around the country that have experience using NASA resources and NASA science. So we're very happy to do that. We also recognize that some locations may have local researchers they may already work with, or that they may want to connect with at their local community college or university. And so that's also another opportunity. And so I would say, to answer that question, is we'll really work with you individually to figure out what best suits your needs to find a researcher there. But we are very happy to connect you with a NASA researcher, either remotely, or if it makes sense, we can explore options for in-person.
Yeah, and again, the program model I showed, we ended up being unable to schedule, but the interaction that was part of the Museum of Art's program model was to have a virtual Q&A with a science visualizer for the students. And so that's the kind of thing that we can arrange, like a live interaction with participants, or it might be that you just want some advice and content expertise from a subject matter specialist, from a scientist. So any of those are possible. Next question, if we receive funds, what is the time frame to implement? That's a great question. And the applications are in December. Decisions would be in early January, with the first funds going out at that time. And I think this is before October 1st or by September. I think it was by
end of September.
And okay.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks, Natalie. Yep. So that's the time frame. Expected net, this is a great question, Dave. Expected number of presentations or audience size. That's pretty variable. I guess in general, I'd say if you were to propose like a single event or something like that, we would want to see a higher number of participants. Whereas if you provide something that's kind of a deep engagement for a smaller number of participants, that works too. The idea is that it's a program model that could be shared. So the program model that I just showed images of, Annette, I think she had 30 students in a summer camp program. And so that's a small number of participants, but the program model is a really nice one that's shareable. We've had other applicants who did a series of events where, 2 or 3 special events, astronomy events at their institution, where large numbers of people came and they experienced different programs and resources. So it was a shorter hit, but more people. So
let me add on to that as well. Not everything that we've had proposed to us has been a presentation. We've had some things along the lines of developing exhibit stuff for the local audience that draws in the NASA resources and it ends up creating something appropriate for that audience local to the museum that can then be shared out and used at other places as well. So it doesn't even have to be a presentation necessarily.
Right.
We had a lot of fun. We did 2 events last year. One was National Astronomy Day, and then we created a Mars Fest in July. And the activities were such a big hit with the kids and our staff that we have spun off some of the activities into our permanent curriculum that we teach in the museum. In fact, we've reconstituted our one of our labs to have a kinetic solar system on the floor, and so that's now a permanent. Well, it's going to be permanent this year at least in our programming. So there's kind of an unexpected little spin-off from that staff and community embraced it so much.
Right, that's great. Yeah. Let's see, Sarah, a mention of exhibit interactive being included. Yes. Oh, right. I'm sorry. Tim, you just answered that. The program is not the preferred use of these funds. Exhibits would be great too. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Component. With regard to grade level, I think it's audiences, learners of all ages. An interesting adult program would be of interest, or a program for elders.
We do have an interest in serving traditionally underserved by STEM audiences. So we've had some great proposals. There was one, I think, for an autistic audience. We had one that dealt with a prison audience. And it ranges. It could be racial or ethnic minorities. It could be girls. All sorts of things. But grade level not necessarily a preferred grade level there.
You may find that some of the content is harder to do with elementary age, but not, you may figure it out. And in fact, Artful Exoplanets actually was a great way of doing that. So what do I know?
If anyone figures out how to engage first graders with dark energy, I would love to hear that idea. I think there was also a question earlier about, we should clarify that all of these are going to be recorded. All of the webinars will be recorded.
Yes. First graders are experts on dark energy, to suggest. Yes, school outreach programming, because museums kind of cross that informal, formal boundary. I think that's an appropriate use as well. Yeah. Other questions I missed? Any other questions?
Well, I should just clarify. I was clearly joking, I hope, about the first graders in dark energy. I don't feel like you have to write a proposal to address that.
Right. Great. Well, thank you all for making time in your day to find out more about this program. And now we hope that we'll get to meet with you regularly over the next couple of months. Again, the webinars will be using the same Zoom connection platform. They'll be at 2 p.m. On the schedule that Natalie has sent and will send you. And we look forward to your participation.